We won't record the breakout rooms. We won't record the breakout rooms because you'll get into more personal stuff there, I would imagine. So, shall we wait a little bit longer and then get started? Another, what, couple of moments? There's Marion.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, Marion.
Unmute yourself, Marion. Unmute yourself. That little red mmicrophone.
Who's on the phone?
Valerie. Oh, no, I
Steve
don't know.
Cosgrove
There's
and Valerie.
Steve Cosgrove is on the phone.
334-466-307. That's 334 area code. Who is that?
He's in Auburn, Alabama.
That's me.
Who is
As
that?
in War Eagle. Hello.
Couldn't
get the
get the
All right.
name.
Carla, it's
Valerie
good to see
Chang,
you.
are you hearing us? Valerie, are you hearing us?
She's trying to log on to an iPad, I think she said.
She's muted.
Valerie Chang or Valerie Batts?
Val Chang.
Oh,
By the way.
Yeah,
by the
so
way,
Val
Felipe,
Chang is
hey,
going to
well,
try to get back on her
Garcia.
iPad, and I'm going to Lucy here, and if there are things coming in, in the chat, I'll try to pick them up and respond if there are
Okay.
issues.
So let's get started more formally now. I want to thank Felipe, Garcia, Lucy Freedman, and let me say the three of us have been on the council since not any longer on, but from the very beginning. And I remember Felipe standing up and saying, we don't want a lot of structure. And I said, well, Felipe, is it okay if we raise our hand in meetings? He said, yeah, that's about the only structure we had in those days. And then also our two technical people, Kristina and Jacob, have been wonderful and from the beginning. So I want to thank all of them. Let me see here. So we are recording, we talked about that. And we're doing this for posterity. People 30, 40 years from now might really want to see who were these people that were so active in the early years and made such a big difference. Let's see. Kristina, you have any technical stuff you want people to know off the top of your head?
Yeah, if people can keep their cameras muted while others, and then we can, and then, hi, thank you, Chris. And then when you want to speak, come off of mute. That would be helpful and then in the breakout groups, you're happy to keep off mute.
We won't do a lot of question and answers here because of time. We're hoping to make it an hour and a half. We don't have to make it an hour and a half, but that's our goal. So please be aware of that. So the way we're going to do the day is we're going to start with each person doing a 1 minute. I want to repeat that, a 1 minute intro of themselves, because we have a lot of people. We could spend the whole time on the intro if we just did that. In addition, we're going to do breakout rooms. Breakout rooms will be groups of 5, probably. Kristina, is that what we decided?
Yes,
Groups of
yes.
5, and you'll have 20 minutes in the breakout group. Then you'll have an automatic way to come back in. You don't have to worry about coming back in. You automatically come back into the group. We'll do a 5-minute break, 5-minute break, and then we're going to do a second breakout group with different people. So you'll get an opportunity to chat more thoroughly with about 8 different people, roughly. We'll come back for the overall thing. And when we come back for the overall thing, we're going to ask, I think, Lucy, you're going to do this. You and Felipe are going to share some of the accomplishments of USADA in the last many years, which have been extensive.
Still broadcasting.
Really extensive. I'm sorry. Okay, so they're going to do that. And we're going to then ask whether you want another one of these in about 6 months to a year. And then we're going to hear a short video by Bob Hempel, who's the president of USADA, that sort of says goodbye to everyone.
Well, I've had notes and it doesn't work.
Okay, so can we mute everybody now? Kristina, can you mute everybody?
Yes,
don't
I
mute
can.
me because I want to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Felipe, I'm gonna mute all, and then can you unmute yourself?
Just
Okay.
unmute
Please.
yourself.
I want to say that Chuck Holland had said he was going to join us, and he just sent an email this morning that said that he had some kind of a situation and he ended up in emergency and that he had some kind of something with his heart, but he sounds like he's doing better, but that he's going to miss being with us. And the other thing that I wanted to say is to remember to say your name. We don't always remember. Say your name and where you're from every time you talk, just for us, for those of us that don't remember it. Welcome. So Abe, you want to start the 1 minute at a time?
Abe, you're on mute. Sorry, Abe, you're on mute. Still muted.
Abe, you're still muted.
Don't mute yourself. Well, while Abe comes, we were going to put the list up.
Am I unmuted now?
There you go,
Yes.
Abe.
Okay. So when Felipe talked about Chuck Holland, I had a thought. I said to my wife the other day, I have a thought. She said, beginner's luck. At any rate, my thought is this. If we have another one, I'd like to honor people who are no longer with us as part of it, because I think we forget about those folks, and that's a very sad thing. So that's something you can think about if you want another one. Okay, so let me start. I'll introduce myself, Abe Wagner. I decided to mainly talk about what I've done with TA. My early start was thanks to two people here, John and Lori Weiss. We were at a party together and John Weiss said, do you know anything about transactional analysis? And invited me to a 101 that he and Gordon Reimel did. And I learned more in that 2-day workshop than I learned in graduate school of social work. I was hooked, immediately hooked. That's how it started. And for the last 45 years, I have been training predominantly in the corporate world. I've been doing groups of seminars with CEOs and key execs from roughly 1,000 different presentations around the world. And the reason I work with CEOs and key execs is they all influence so many people. So I felt like I was reaching many, many thousands of people. I retired formally last year, wrote 2 books. The Transactional Manager was published by Prentice Hall. And then I wrote Say It Straight or You Show It Crooked. They're published in different countries. Anyway, that's my background. Retired last year, still doing a thing with Denver University as a volunteer through the program OLLI, O-L-L-I. I'm done. Felipe.
Well, we were going to put the list so that people knows who's next on the right. How do we do that?
We have the pictures of people right in front of us.
Oh, okay.
So we can use those.
All right. Okay, well, I'm Felipe Garcia. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, on the outskirts, outside of the city. Anyway, I've been in TA since 1972 or so. I first read I'm Okay, You're Okay, and then went and studied for my 101 with Tom and Amy Harris for a week, which was very rich. And like Abe, and I'm sure all of you, I got hooked immediately. And then I read What Do You Say After You Say Hello, and then spent a month with Bob and Mary Goulding, and then the rest is history. I started TA in education. I was at that time a consultant at a regional service center and was doing a lot of in-service training for teachers, counselors, and principals, and introducing them into how TA was useful in terms of discipline and motivation and curriculum, et cetera. And it was very, very well received. And then I was in private practice, both as a consultant to organizations and also to individuals and couples in terms of psychotherapy. And I retired 95% about 2 years ago, and I'm still seeing a few people and very involved with, got re-involved with USADA, which I hope you all do the same. I'm glad to be here and I hope I didn't go up my minute.
Brenda, just take off. Unmute yourself, Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Schaefer, and my practice has been
Oh,
primarily in
Brenda, there are 2 Brendas here.
Oh.
We're going by picture, so it's Brenda Berry.
Oh,
Okay.
hi, Brenda Schaefer. Good to see you. Brenda Berry, and I live just outside of Philadelphia. And I got into TA through the chairperson of my dissertation while I was getting my PhD was Herb Hampshire. I don't know how many people remember him,
Yeah.
but he got me into TA, and I have been practicing that for the last 40 some years. Although I have to say recently I've kind of done more imago, but all imago is TA put into a nice couples package.
Right.
As we finally got Harville Hendricks to admit one time when he presented at a TA conference.
Yes.
I also am a Weight Watchers coach. And so for the last 20 years, I've been able to maintain my weight, which is one of the more successful challenges in my life. And I still get to do some music. Some of you know that I was always looking for an occasion to sing at conferences and stuff. I haven't been to one in a long time. My husband has Parkinson's, so that kind of keeps me around taking care of him. I'm now in a recurrence of breast cancer, but I'm going to beat it. It's done. My minute's up.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Kristina, do you want to say anything about yourself?
Am I next? No?
Yeah, Leonard Campos would be next, right?
Oh, on my screen, I don't know.
Okay, so let me just call on people. That'll be simpler. Leonard, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Leonard. Unmute yourself. You're muted, Leonard. Unmute yourself.
How about now?
Now you're
Good.
okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right. I started in TA in 1968, but you're not including us from the 60s. Anyway, I met Eric in 68. He inspired me. Bob Goulding inspired me when I was introduced to the TA Gestalt behavioral model. I've been practicing for over 40 years. I'm retired now. And I always loved transactional analysis and the people in it. Although I do believe in the hexagon and not the four-cornered TA that we practice today, my interest has been at the social level, at the collective level, and that's where I wrote most of my articles on the cultural level of TA. And so I've been around for quite a long time, so count me as one of the elders.
Okay, thank you very much. Valerie Batts, would you go ahead next?
Yeah.
Valerie?
Yes. I'm checking in today from Edenton, North Carolina. And I can say that I've been continuing to use TA in our social justice work. And since George Floyd, we've introduced probably more people to these concepts than we had in a long time. And so I still find it very relevant. Lots of folks that we interact with are activists and aren't so interested in learning the theory, but they love the way that the practice allows them to do the work that they're doing. And I'm turning 70 on Wednesday. I was a baby when I joined ITA. I think I was a young TM. And now I'm not a baby anymore. And I encourage you all, I wanted to get on here to say, I appreciate each of you and what you're doing in the world, because if you're using the theory, you're helping people focus on equity in some way. And I'm also going to make a particular plug to please get everybody you know to vote and do anything you can to support the candidates who will allow us to save the democracy. Because I'm experiencing right now as a child who grew up in segregated US, I'm really scared about where we're going. And whatever your political affiliation, it needs to be about people who want a democracy. So, and I'm going to be here for a little while longer to hear and listen. And I hope that can happen. And if USA TAA continues, that we think about, again, how do we impact the cultural system.
Thank you, Valerie. John Tyler.
Thank you, Val.
I'm a recovering lawyer. And after I stopped being a lawyer, I met Natalie Tyler, who was then Natalie Garber, who had been with TA like forever. And those of you who knew Natalie know she was a force of nature.
Yeah.
So I told her I'd never do groups. I'll never do a marathon. I was a private person. And boy, she got me so far. And we taught a couple, we did mostly couple therapy. And we did meld the Imago into TA. It was a beautiful meld. And as a matter of fact, we did a presentation before Harville in New Orleans after we left Hawaii, which I had my heart in my throat the whole time, but he seemed to think we did okay. And that was the highlight of my career for sure. I live in Ashland, Oregon now. We lived in Hawaii for 20 years, with a beautiful 20 years. Then we came here, and Natalie got about 4 or 5 good years here. And she passed in 2014, and I've been without her ever since. But I have a partner now, and we're conducting an anti-racism group, so we're still active. Retirement to me means I just see the people I want to see. So
Super,
that's
super.
just where I am.
Janice Dawson. Janice, unmute yourself.
I am. Good morning,
Sure.
everybody. I'm Janice Dawson from Canada, outside of Vancouver, and I got started in TA in 1974 when Vince Gilpin invited me to come to a workshop that he was doing in Ontario. And since then, well, after that, I got in touch with Leonard Gann, and he sort of made sure I stayed involved in TA. Had so many wonderful, welcome, unexpected gifts from people in transactional analysis over these many years. And I'm just filled with gratitude and reflection on those. And as I look at this screen today, I think about all of the many gifts that I've received from each person whose face I see here today. So I just want to say thanks, and happy to be here.
Wayne Hart, you're next.
Thanks. Gee, I trained during the 70s. My primary trainer was Bill Collins. In 1980, I got my clinical teaching membership, was called in those days. And over the next few years, I found myself in settings where I had to talk a different vocabulary on the surface, and I had to operate in a different frame of reference. And so I drifted between a number of different things, ended up spending 19 years training leadership development for the Center for Creative Leadership Development, retired, and decided I really wanted to get back to where I could talk about TA as well as be thinking it. And I'm glad to be back among friends and in the like-minded world.
Thank you.
And
Inger.
you're very active in the USATA Council. Thank you.
Great. Inger.
Yeah, hi, I'm Inger, and I live in Berkeley, and I trained with Bob and Mary in '77 and have used TA and redecision therapy since then in working with CPS, and now I have a private practice, a small one, and that's it.
And you won an award.
Thank you. Carol Solomon.
And Inger is active on USADA and has recently won an award from ITAA, as has Janice the year before. And
Super.
yes.
Social Action Award.
So I didn't know if I would get to see you all again. And when I found out about this little gathering, I was thrilled that I'd be able to reconnect with people. I learned about TA from Eric Byrne when I was a 19-year-old depressed kid, and I was referred to him by Joan Baez, so I thought he was special. And I went in to talk to him, and he started writing these circles on the board. But I have to say, I had been in psychoanalytic therapy in New York for 2 years. So that's kind of what I thought therapy was. He started writing all these circles on the board and explaining parent, adult, and child. And I said to him, I am not going to talk this stupid language. And he said to me, well, you can either start talking my language or find yourself a different shrink. And that's when I started learning TA. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. After he died, I ended up in training with Bob and Mary, did that for many years, and Bob sponsored me for my teaching membership. And then I had a practice that's been over 50 years. I'm still working. I consider myself semi-retired. I'm still working 2 days a week. And the rest of my time, I spend training my 11-month-old English cream golden retriever
Oh,
and
very-
singing in a chorus. I think that's probably a minute. My favorite TA project was the Eric Byrne Archives, and I still feel grateful to everybody who donated and made that possible. So thank you.
Good. Nancy Steele.
I go by Nancy Porter Steele.
Sorry.
And when Curtis and I met, I was practicing architecture. And he began inviting me to these various psychotherapy things, one of which was a presentation at the Louisiana Group Psychotherapy Association by Bob and Mary Goulding. And so this was early 1971. And that summer we went and studied with the Gouldings together. And I started doing therapy right then. And they encouraged me. They said, your perceptions are accurate. Your interventions are helpful. Keep going. And so I kept going, and I helped create a center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana with Curtis, where we taught a great many people. And then we moved to San Diego for a while. And then we came to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we've been training people all that time up until we did retire at the age, I was 82 at the time, a few years ago. And since then, I have seen a few people individually, but it's been a long, interesting time. And we have done a lot of wonderful work all over the place and enjoyed it very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lucy.
See if my bandwidth holds up for this. Hi, everybody. I think I rank as one of the loyalists who has hung in with ITAA and USATAA all this time. When I got involved with ITAA and was working on getting the world integrated, little could I see that how strongly the international version of TA would take off. And I started off in TA as I had been teaching high school, and I came in through a different door. My sister went to a marathon with Jackie Schiff and Harry Rose and brought me along to the next one. And that was my entry into TA, and I still value and use a lot of the passivity material and so on. And currently, to be quick, besides being active in USADA, which I invite everybody to, come on, come play. Isn't this fun? Get involved with us. Again, I've been able to offer some TA process groups because of the whole Zoom thing, and also a TA practitioner program with some of the most delightful people I've ever met. And so I'm very happy about the continuing motion of TA and people like Wayne showing up and coming back, and others who will teach. So the other thing I invite is who will teach. We need teachers, and we need classes so that people know where they can go when they want to find some TA training. So if you haven't been inspired to do that recently, I hope to re-inspire you. And with so much more, I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains in this beautiful spot, and I love you all so much. And I think TA is a help on the pathway to both love and peace. And darn it, I hope we can muster the energy, as Valerie Batt spoke, to get the vote out and to shift the direction of some of the stuff going on. So that's me.
I know I speak for a lot of you. Without Lucy Freedman, USADA would not be here today. No question about that. No question about that. Lori.
That's worrisome to me. Very worrisome to me.
Okay. I'm Lori Weiss, and I'm in Colorado in the Denver area. And I got into TA totally accidentally in 1967. John was in training with Dave Kupfer and with Bob and Mary, and the wives decided to go to the conference. And I was dumped in, and it was the most incredible life-changing experience I have ever had, including being in a stroke pile with Eric Byrne. I totally blew all my circuits. And I went on to, I was a teacher at the time. The only TA training was to be a therapist. I accidentally became a therapist when Natalie Hamowitz said, when are you going to take your exam? I think you're ready. And became a teaching member in 1974 when we were running around the country teaching Jackie Schiff's passivity material. And since then, I had some really important things with Muriel James and Dorothy Youngward. And at one point I said, I need you to write this. And they said, you write it. And that was sort of, I didn't think I was a writer, but I've done 13 books, all in the self-help, all involved with TA theory and things like that. And TA has been such an important central part of my life that even though I do so many other things, I was so grateful that I was going to see everybody again today. And how, so many of you I have had ongoing contact with. I've been involved with USADA till recently. And it's been a life beyond my wildest imagination. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Carla.
Oh, hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you. I have so many zillions of memories about so many of you. And, I mean, Valerie jogging with you and then your husband making us muffins after. Remember that? Anyway, I want to call into Bob and Mary Golding, Muriel James, she married me. Claude Steiner, I learned most of my TA, not from my parents, but from Claude Steiner. My introduction to TA was in radical psychiatry, where we learned the personal is political. I still do 2 groups, right, these days. I want to bring in, Bob and Mary Golding, Valerie Langford, who I've had some contact with. Who else? Claude Steiner, Jackie Schiff, and my parents, Natalie and Morris Hamowitz, who, raised me. Anyway, I'm so glad to see you. And I hope I designated an hour for us because I'm still working. I work 7 days a week and I feel very grateful for that. I only do 2 groups. I love groups. And, with this Zoom stuff, I hope I'm not taking up more than a minute. There's people who are in Laos, who are in the group, and people who are in other countries in the group. And when they're on vacation in another state, they can be in the group. It's just wonderful. Or nursing their baby and they're in the group. It's just, it's a plus. Anyway, I'll stop. But anyway, it's so good to see you. And I hope that we can have one another's emails.
Good to see you, Carla.
Robin.
Well, I started in TA in 1972 when I came to the office on College Avenue to do 2 days of typing. And then they asked me to stay on and do registration for the 1972 conference. And then I was active in organizing the 73, 74, 75 conferences while I was in graduate school. And then in 76, I convinced Bob Anderson, who was the executive director at the time, to let me take on the script, which was being published very erratically and had no real consistency. And then in 82, I think it was, they asked me if I would take on the journal. And here I am.
Yeah.
And it's great to see you all, and wonderful that TA continues to grow and thrive after some years of wondering if we were going to even survive.
Thanks so much. Reiko.
Robin.
Hi, I started out as a student of Mary and then met Bob. And in 1968, Eric, I guess that was one of the early TA conference. And so I've been, and then been greatly influenced by Muriel James. I am now 99.9% retired for several years, but I've been drawn into working with Janice and Inga on Social Justice Committee for developing TA 101. And now I'm retired from that committee too, but it's just wonderful to see that flourish on the Facebook. So it's just great to see you all. I'm right now taking care of my husband who has had heart failures, and then my daughter who is battling cancer. So that keeps me pretty occupied at this point, but it's just so great to see you, all of you. It's been so long, and it reminds me that I need to really stay involved. So thank you so much.
Thank you. John Weiss. John, if I'm not back, it'll just be Marion afterwards, okay?
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see these faces again. I got into TA by reading games people play when it first came out, and I fell out of my chair laughing and was hooked already. Then there was a TA 101 in Chicago with Bob Goulding and Dave Kupfer. And in that 101, I took that in the same week that I had a group process workshop. And in the group process workshop, we sat around for 3 days talking about how nice it would be if we could learn to trust each other. And in the 101, Dave Kupfer cured me of my doctoral dissertation with one transaction. And I got hooked from there on forward. Wound up teaching without knowing I was capable of it. I just volunteered and stepped into the role. And we moved to Denver shortly after that and created a TA community that met twice a week for 7 years of people interested in learning about TA. I was paid a salary by the state of Colorado to teach TA to anybody I could find, which I thought was a very nice marketing program for when we started private practice. So I keep saying we because everything I've done in TA since my 101 has been done with Lori. We did group therapy, 5 groups a week with 10 people per group for a large number of years, and really had an impact, I think, in the Denver community. I'm pretty much retired at this point. I have one pro bono client that I want to brag about, but there's nobody I can brag to about her. That's just how it goes. My background picture is Hogwarts, in case you didn't recognize it. And I put that up there because this is wizard school as far as I'm concerned. I'm actually a member of the Bad Wizard Club that Bill Holloway created when the board was not being very well accepted by some of the decisions that they made. So he passed out buttons saying Bad Wizard Club. That's about it for me.
Thank you, Marion.
Hi, everyone. I am so delighted to see you all. Many of you I've spent very amazing quality time with and known through seminars, Jamaica, so on and so forth. I started in 1967. David Kupfer was my teacher. And then we in New York, that was Mary Goulding and myself, brought him there to do the first 101 in New York. And eventually we had a seminar and then a training program. And I trained with Jackie Schiff for my clinical and Fanita for my teaching membership. I'm currently actually active. I am working 3 days a week in New York City, but I've been liberated by Zoom. So now I'm living in the country some of the time, Florida some of the time, and still maintaining a practice. And I love TA. It's just been my organizing principle in life and in the way I've been doing my work, even though I've added in a lot of other other kinds of practices, but TA is it for me, and it always will be. Recently, I was on the education committee. We put on these workshops. Brenda was chairing it. Lucy was there. All of you were kind of active in one way or another, I think, in USATA, and I was there too. But mostly, I'm just delighted that we're having this meeting now. And thank you, you all, and thank you, TA.
Thanks a lot. Gene?
See you, Marion.
Gene Maxwell.
Hi, I'm Gene Maxwell, live in Denver, Colorado. There are a lot of Ghost of Christmas Past on this screen for me. I got into TA mostly because of the benevolence of Bob and Mary Goulding. I showed up at a workshop in Denver on a 16 below zero day. And it turned out to be a workshop that was getting people prepared to take their clinical exams. And I hadn't even taken a legitimate one-to-one or basic course. Lori was on the floor doing yoga poses when I walked in. I walked down the 15th Street Mall to meet John Weiss, who became my supervisor for both my clinical and my teaching membership. Abe Wagner was a cohort in our studies. We had cassette tapes that we plugged in and listened to each other's work. Abe tells a few lies about some comments that I made about him in one of those sessions. I wouldn't listen to him if I ever heard that story personally. Curtis and Nancy are the people who are responsible for helping me come to New Orleans and get established with a teaching training practice that I did there for 14 years. I am currently involved in doing executive leadership, coaching and training, work mostly with CEOs, mostly here in Colorado today. Abe got me some work in Singapore and an introduction that blossomed into Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and India. And I've finished with that. I'm still active, probably a little better than half-time now.
Thank you very much. A guy you've probably never heard of. Let me introduce him. His name is Van Joins.
Hello, everybody. Great to see you. So many familiar faces. It's really neat. Which I got here late because I was doing a training program. Are we just talking about?
Say anything you want about what you'd like, about yourself for about a minute.
Okay. So I started out taking a TA 101 with Aaron Schiff. And the thing that really hooked me on transactional analysis was that I found out that he had been a backward schizophrenic. And I thought, any approach that can take somebody who was a backward schizophrenic and turn them into what he was when he did that 101 course, I've got to learn more about this. I was really impressed. He was one of the best put together people I'd ever experienced. And Jackie was the only person on the East Coast who was doing much training that time. So a group of us in Chapel Hill invited somebody from the Schiff family down, and Aaron was available, and he came down and did a 101, and it was fantastic. So then I contacted Bob and Mary Goulding, went out there for a couple of months in the summer of 1972. And that was a fantastic experience. It was almost an overload. Being in a month-long workshop 2 months in a row was just almost overkill, but it was fantastic. And I really learned a lot, and the Gouldings continued to be my mentors for my clinical exam and then teaching exam. And I've been in Chapel Hill teaching and training and doing therapy ever since. And really enjoyed doing a lot of international training since COVID. I've stopped doing a direct clinical practice with individuals. I'm still doing groups, but I'm doing a lot of training, international training. I'm currently doing a training program with a group of people in Russia. I've done training programs in Japan and in China, and it's really neat that most of the workshops I'm doing now online have people from all over the world, which really enriches it. So
Van has had the longest TA institute in the United States, if not the world.
yeah, I know in the United States, I don't know about the world, but
Okay. Next person is 133466. Is someone there?
This is Steve. Yeah, this is Steve Cosgrove. Can you hear me, folks?
Yes.
I'm calling you from Auburn, Alabama. I've got some technical problems here, but I'm not able to get on the Zoom thing. But I recognize every one of you, and I've admired and respected every one of you. And Felipe and Van and Gene Maxwell, it's just so great to hear your voices and so forth. I want to reconnect with you for sure. But I first got in, let me just step back. I'm an Illinois boy. I grew up in Illinois, and I met Kenny Wines and Marty Groder at the Asclepion Therapeutic Community in 1969. I was a graduate student at the Southern Illinois University Rehabilitation Counseling Program, and I went out there to the Marion Federal Penitentiary for 2 or 3 times a week for the next 4 years, from 1969 to 1973. I couldn't get enough of it, but became great friends with both of them. I set up workshops for both Marty Groder and Kenny Wines, Marty in Auburn, Alabama here, and Kenny down in Miami, Florida, when I was running a drug treatment program down there. But I have just such deep regard for the concept of transactional analysis. I have every one of the transactional TA bulletins. I've got every one of the journals, and I've read every one of them. I'm a regular member. I still call myself an RM. I don't know what you all call us, but I'm a regular member from April 1st, 1975, seamlessly for all these years. I'm very proud of that. I've been involved. I've seen Van, the Southeast Institute Spring Conference of 1975, March of 1975 was the first conference that I went to, and that was in Chapel Hill. You and Graham Barnes and I believe Valerie, and I'm sorry I don't know everybody's name, but again, Van, you know me well, and I know you.
Yes, I
and
do.
Our son Coleman, he's going to be the heir apparent to all of my TA journals and so forth. He just got his certificate of residency. He's a psychiatrist. Just got it 2 days ago from up there in Buffalo, New York. But I have just such deep regard for all of you. I did want to ask about, and Gene Maxwell, you were on my list, but Gene, Alan Jacobs, Ted and Judy Harrison, Ted Bruce, Linda Dietrich, and Grover Zulu Bell. I wanted to know if anybody knew anything about them. When I just heard from Gene Maxwell, Gene, it's the first time I talked to you and heard your voice in 50 years. I know that Kenny Wines, Marty Groder, and Graham Barnes passed away, and they touched my heart. I love all of them, and I love all of you. Again, you don't know me. Most of you don't. Some of you do. Felipe, I've been to your home and your conferences there in Helotes, Texas area, and you've touched my heart just deeply also. But every one of you, I've been to your, I hear your, I've got right here in my office, I have your books. I've read this, I've devoured it and so forth, but I've respected and admired every one of you, and I really appreciate your taking time to include me on this.
Thank you so
and thank
much.
you so very much, and warm fuzzies to everybody. Again, this is Steve Cosgrove, and I'm calling you from Auburn, Alabama.
Good to hear from you. I'm glad you brought up Ted Bruce. I was wondering about Ted Bruce.
Okay,
Let's
go with Christopher now. We've got a time problem. Christopher, you want to unmute yourself? Christopher Zimmerman? Not there. Curtis, unmute yourself, please.
I'm here.
Oh, Christopher is there. Okay.
Hi, Al. I'm a computer systems engineer. I can't get my computer.
I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Hold on
so I can't hear
one
myself.
minute. Curtis, hold on 1 minute. We're going back to Christopher just a minute. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Christopher.
Hi, I cannot get my camera to work. Let's see. I also started with games people play. about 12 years ago. I'm an aerospace engineer, and I read the book and I knew there was something there. So I took to it like an engineer and read it 2 more times, taking intense notes. And I was waiting for something to click, and it didn't. But then I read, I'm okay, you're okay. And then I started to see things. And I'm a newbie. I've been around, as I said, I read that in 2012. I was at Raleigh and met a bunch of you guys there. I was in the one-on-one with Dan and Valerie and Felipe, and our dear departed. And I'm just a big fan. I'm actually starting to work with Lucy to try to do some stuff on USADA. And I'm in a slow version of a TAP. And I'm 66 years old, and I'm finally starting to like myself. And all through TA. So anyway, big fan, will be here forever. Like that, I'm done.
Good to see you and meet you.
Thanks very much. Curtis.
Yes. I'm back.
No, you were unmuted, Curtis. Go back to unmute. You're now muted. Go back to unmute. You're muted.
Start.
Oh. Unmute. Curtis, unmute. There you go. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Here you know.
I'm so excited to see all of you and being back with the family here that is so rich and rewarding. The being in the spirit of okayness that pervades this whole meeting. Nancy's introduced where we are. We're retired. I'm in the next decade of my life. It's the biggest period of growing I've ever experienced. I'm in the process of reinventing myself. I'm very involved in physical fitness now. Perhaps I'll get back to running. I don't know. It's this decade of my life is the richest one in my life so far. It's a period of just discovery, and I welcome everybody to think of this as the greatest opportunity for growth we've ever had. Ageism is a killer for society. It doesn't have to be. I'm involved with the Wim Hof program, which is a way of reconstructing our physiology. It involves breath work, work with cold, and work with the attitude of success. So I invite you to take a look at it. Anyway, too much preaching. It's good to be with you. Rich memories, wonderful people. Loved all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Brenda.
Okay.
So the correct Brenda this time, right?
Yes.
Hi,
Hi, everybody. It's great to see those of you that I know and those of you I know through name. I was first introduced to TA. Actually, I attended a 101 by Bob and Mary Goulding. I'm from the Midwest. Minneapolis was the main place that I practiced. So Russ Osnes, who I would consider second generation under Byrne, and then he was training George Barnett, and George Barnett was training me. And so I guess I would be a fourth generation. But at that time, I studied all 4 schools of TA. Escalapian was big, and Ted Harrison was introduced me into that. And I spent the month with Bob and Mary Goulding, and I studied the cathexis and actually reparented a few clients before I realized how intensive that could get. And then the traditional. And the point being, as everyone said, it's a frame of reference for living, and it's a frame of reference that I finally understood how to get people from A to Z in their therapy. And in the course of working, I did write a book called Is It Love or Is It Addiction? And I realized that the premise of that book was based on Robert Phillips' work on secondary symbiosis. And if I hadn't known TA at the time and I was a clinical member, I would never have understood that love addiction is child to child. And from that, then I got into connecting with the Society for the Advancement of Sexual Health and became certified as a sex addiction specialist by the American Academy of Healthcare Providers. Long story short, I use TA to help recovering addicts. And it's the one thing that really helps them stay sober. A lot of people will go to groups or do therapy, but this is the one thing that's psychodynamic with the use of TA that guarantees long-term results. So anyway, right now I'm sitting at my lake home in Wisconsin because of COVID. I was retired and now I'm back working 3 days a week because people are reaching out. There are a lot of people wanting help right now. And I gave up my office in Minneapolis, but and I spent time in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where my son lives. So good to see you all. And I would concur with Lucy. Those of you that haven't been active in USADA, please, we need you.
Thanks so much. Val.
Yes. Well, this is kind of weird. I can see you from one screen and you can hear me from another. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
And hear you. Technology. Anyway, I got introduced to TA in, I think, 73 or 74. And my introduction was a little different than yours. I was working at a comprehensive mental health clinic, and some of my colleagues were going to a conference with Hedges Capers on TA. And, you know, it was a day off work. I said, what the heck, I'll go. What should I read? And they told me to read I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I did not like it. What I didn't like was his premise that people were born not okay. That didn't fit with my philosophy at all. So I went to this workshop all set to say, what the heck, this is not right. And Hedges said, I agree with you, it isn't. Well, okay. So I listened and I was very quickly hooked, and I worked with him and became a clinical member in 75, a teaching member in, I think, 78. I worked with lots of people. At the time most of the time when I was in training, I had 2 young children and I was a single mom. So I didn't have the opportunity to go off for a month to the Gouldings, but I brought a lot of people to Indiana where I lived. And so I got to train with many people, and I did get to go to conferences and meet almost everybody on the screen. Many of you I saw in Jamaica, where we had wonderful fun conferences. So it was terrific. And I was in practice in Richmond, Indiana. You've never heard of it. It's not a very big city, but I had at one point 8 groups going. I was told that in a small town, you can't do groups. Well, that wasn't true. Eventually, I decided I wanted another challenge, and I took a position as a professor and director of a small program at a branch of Indiana University. And I liked that. So I went on and got a PhD and then got a job at the main campus. And I've written a few books. One of them is a textbook that's still being used. I think it's in its 4th edition. It isn't TA, but if you read it, you would recognize that I had TA training. I didn't use that language, but the concepts have done well for students. I'm mostly retired. I see clients occasionally. I lead a support group on Zoom, and I'm very active in doing many different kinds of things.
Val, I need to kind of get going.
Okay.
Want to say a final goodbye?
Yeah, bye, everybody. It's so good to see you all.
Ed Gerwitz.
Thanks. Great to see you all. I got my start in TA, although I didn't know it at the time, with Claude Steiner. I was in the radical psychiatry program at the public university, or whatever they used to call it, People's University or something in New York. And I got interested, and he introduced me to Marion Weisberg and Mary Bolton, and it was all over after that. I was knocked out. I became a clinical teaching member. I was on the board. Haven't done much directly with TA. I left clinical work quite a long time ago and went into organizational work, consulting and coaching, but I use it there. And especially, I find, especially the drama triangle is just, people recognize it, they understand it. I've kept in touch with a few of you, the Weisses, Marion, but I've missed hearing the conversation, missed hearing people talk about it. I will tell you one quick story. I'm on the board of a national nonprofit called Mankind Project. That organization is 37, 38 years old and got its start. It did its first training weekends at a place in Wisconsin called Hamewoods. So that just proved to me that there's at most 6 degrees of separation. Anyhow, great to see all. Abe and Felipe, thanks for organizing this. I hope we'll do it again.
Okay, did we hear from everyone? I think we did. Did I miss anybody? All right.
We haven't heard from
Christina.
We haven't heard from Kristina.
Kristina, you want to do a thing? Go ahead, Kristina.
Yes, I'll make it brief. Thank you, Inger, for including me. I'm Kristina Shea, and I'm the grasshopper of the group. I am a PhD student at the Claremont Colleges and studying positive organizational psychology. And I was brought to this work by the work of Dr. Taby Kaler, John Parr, our lovely John, and also Steve Cartman. I spent a lot of time connecting with Steve and really learning about how I can bring the work back. I spent a week, the last 3 or 4 days before I came on vacation, in the Byrne Library in San Francisco at UCSF, and that was incredible. What an amazing opportunity to go to UCSF in the libraries and go into his work. So my primary goal, I'm on the USA TAA Council. My primary goal is to inspire the next generation of TA practitioners and TA people in the US. And so with the idea of learning from ITAA and learning from all of you. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here and observe and connect.
Thank you. Hey, you all did a beautiful job. I didn't stop people. I didn't want to do that, but we've used up a lot of time. I'm wondering about doing one great breakout group instead of 2. Lucy, is that okay? Is that okay, Felipe? One breakout group. We'll do that. Then we'll come back for about 5 minutes about just an update on USA TAA. And how many of you would like to have this again in 6 months to a year? Can I get a raise of hands? Okay, and with a lot more people next time, and we'll do something differently. I'm hoping we'll do something to remember all of the people that are no longer with us. So, Kristina, we're ready to go with the breakout rooms.
So Abe, do you want to do 20 minutes still, or do you want to do?
I would say time-wise, let's do 15.
15. Yeah. Okay. I'll be sending messages, broadcast messages to bring you all back before.
Thank you so much.
Is there any particular agenda you want us to follow?
Oh, Felipe had an idea. Felipe, just read. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. Felipe had some suggestions. You still talk with Felipe. What are they?
Like Abe says, you can talk about anything you want, but some topics that I thought of them in case you run out of topics is how do you appreciate and use transactional analysis in your life today? I think a lot of you mentioned that in the introduction. How do you spend your time these days? Share any fond memories of your times at TA conferences or training.
That's good.
Don't forget to
Okay.
mention your name as you talk.
Thank you. Kristina?
Yes, I'm opening the breakout rooms now.
Thank you.
Do we need help, Kristina, from Jacob?
No, I'm good. Just one more minute. One more. minute.
Okay.
Abe, did you say we should not record breakout rooms?
No, I would. Is that all right if we do not? Is that okay with people?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.